Domhnall Gleeson's Tim Lake begins by introducing himself and his family. He was too tall, too thin, and too orange all the time. Lindsay Duncan, his mother, was typically heartless. In his spare time, his father James, Bill Nye, a former university professor, likes to read and play table tennis. His sister Catherine, also known as Kit Kat, Lydia Wilson, was free-spirited, and his uncle Desmond, Richard Corduroy, who was a little strange and probably has Alzheimer's. As Tim recalls, the family has shared many happy times together on the beach and at their home in Cornwall, England. Tim doesn't particularly enjoy going to his parents' New Year's Eve party. He and his friend Jay, Will Merrick, awkwardly bump into a table, spilling beverages and bottles all over the place, including on some of the other guests. A lovely young blonde woman expresses interest in Tim while Kit Kat hooks up with Jimmy Kincaid, Tom Hughes. The woman moves in to kiss Tim as they all count down to midnight, but instead, he shakes her hand and wishes her a happy new year. Everyone else is kissing their significant spouses while the woman can be seen looking unhappy. Tim and his father meet in the family's den the next day. James shares with him an important family secret that his own father revealed to him when he was 21 years old.
And the secret is that the men in the family can travel in time.
It appears that the family's men have the capacity to travel through time. Tim is surprised and doubts what his father just said, yet he inquires as to how this work is carried out. James instructs him to enter a dark space, close his eyes, tighten his fists, and imagine the exact moment he wishes to travel to. Naturally, he continues, there are restrictions on his time travel because he can only visit specific times in his own life and is unable to murder Hitler or shag Helen of Troy. Tim makes this attempt by going into his bedroom's wardrobe. He follows James' advice, and as soon as Mr. Brightside by the Killers starts playing loudly, he's startled and realizes that he's still sporting the same clothing as he had for the New Year's Eve party celebration. When the clock strikes midnight, he avoids bumping into the table and grabs the blonde woman, much to her delight, kissing her. Tim travels back in time to tell his father how amazed he is. When Tim is asked what he intends to do with this skill, he replies that he truly wants to use it to find a girlfriend.
It would be just great if it could help me get a girlfriend.
The next summer, Kit Kat's friend Charlotte, Margaret Robbery, visits the home to celebrate with Tim's family. Tim falls in love with Kit Kat's friend Charlotte the moment she visits the family during the summer. Charlotte asks Tim to apply sunscreen on her back as she and Kit Kat lounge in the sun.
Will you do my back?
Absolutely.
When he hears the request, he jumps with delight and tries to squeeze the tube, squirting a lot of sunscreen onto Charlotte's back. Tim makes an uneasy retreat into the house, and the closest to return to this particular time. He now presents himself as more relaxed and classy before applying sunscreen to Charlotte's back. Tim visits Charlotte's room the night before her last day with the family to ask her a question. She warns him not to bring up the subject of love.
It's not going to be about love, is it?
As Kit Kat said he might have, but that is exactly what he is planning to do. Despite the fact that Charlotte thinks he's cute, she advises him to try his luck sooner rather than waiting until her last night. This prompts him to enter the closet next to her room and time travel a month to the middle of her stay in order to make a move. Though she expresses more interest, Charlotte advises them to hold off until her last night to better understand her feeling. Heartbroken, Tim realizes that Charlotte is not interested in him and that time travel will not make it possible for him to change her mind. Tim decides to move to London after the summer to pursue a legal profession. He's hosted by a misanthropic playwright, Harry, Tom Hollander, an old friend of his father's. After a few months, Tim goes to a Don's Lenore restaurant where he meets Mary, Rachel McAdams, a young American lady who works for a publishing company. In the dim restaurant, the two engage in some flirtation, and Mary later gives Tim her phone number. Harry's in tears when Tim gets home. It turns out that the opening night of Harry's new play was marred by one of the players forgetting his lines at a vital moment. Tim travels through time to make things right, and the play succeeds. Tim tries to call Mary after saving Harry's opening night, but finds that his phone no longer has her number. Tim made a decision that prevented the evening with Mary from occurring when he decided to travel back in time to aid Harry. He does recall Mary's obsession with Kate Moss, though. He meets Mary once more by going to a Kate Moss exhibition in the city. He makes small talk with her but soon learns that she has a boyfriend. Tim arrives early and convinces her to leave the party before she can meet her future boyfriend after learning how and where they first meet. Tim moves in with Mary as their relationship grows. By chance, he runs into Charlotte again, and this time she lets him know that she would be open to having a romantic relationship with him. Tim rejects her after understanding that he is in love with Mary.
Because it's something very important that I have to do. Right now.
She accepts his marriage proposal and is welcomed by his family.
We've decided, after a little bit of thought, to get married.
Posey, their first child, is born. Kit Kat has not been as fortunate, and on the same day as Posey's first birthday, she crashes her car due to an unhappy relationship. A lack of a job, and drinking. Kit Kat sustains severe injuries, but is making a fair recovery. Tim makes the decision to get involved in her life, and he does so by keeping her from seeing her boyfriend, Jimmy, Tom Hughes. Posey has never been born, and he now has a son, when he travels back in time. His father argues that going back in time to make changes before the birth of his children would prevent the birth of those children. As a result, whatever that took place prior to Posey's birth cannot be reversed, and Tim must deal with the repercussions in the same way a typical person would. Tim recognizes that he cannot alter Kit Kat's present by altering her past, but he and Mary can assist her in doing so. She settles down and has a child with an old friend of Tim's. Another kid, a boy, was born to Tim and Mary. Tim discovers that time travel cannot stop his father's cancer, which is terminal.
I think I just thought with the time thing.
No, I never said we could fix things.
His father has been aware of this for a while, yet he keeps going back in time to prolong his life and spend more time with his family. In order to actually be happy, he advises Tim he must live each day twice. Once as usual, and then almost exactly the same way the second time. The world can be sweet, but we can't see it the first time because of our stresses and concerns. However, the second time, we can see it. Every time Tim misses his father, he acts on this instruction and goes back in time to see him. Mary expresses her desire for a third child to Tim.
It was time for the insurance baby.
What?
In case one of them is really smart.
He is initially hesitant to accept because he won't be able to see his father once the baby is born. Tim informs his father that he can no longer visit after spending the next 9 months with him. They move back in time to when Tim was a young boy, recalling a happy recollection of them having fun on the beach, and then say a heartbreaking goodbye. Tim is aware that he would never again be able to see his father after Mary gives birth to another girl. Tim learns that it's best to live each day only once and to treat everything with the same level of awe as if it were his last. As the movie comes to an end, Tim is getting his 3 kids ready for school while leaving Mary in bed. That was about time. If you liked the recap, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video.